So we're supposed to feel sorry for Jimmy now that he's getting all choked up. And notice, he didn't get choked up after Charlie died. He didn't get emotional about that. Okay, Jimmy Kimmel made his, as we mentioned, made his long-awaited return to the air last night. Long-awaited for 72 hours. 3 entire days, 72 hours. Jimmy Kimmel returned from exile. It was a harrowing 72 hours, right? When they should make a movie about it. An Oscar bait movie about his it'd be like, what's that movie about the guy that had his arm stuck in a rock? 127 Hours, James Franco. So and I think he won an Oscar for that. So, there should be a movie called 72 Hours, very similar, about Jimmy Kimmel's harrowing ordeal. Except that instead of being stuck, having his arm stuck in a rock, he's just sitting on his couch in his Beverly Hills mansion, watching people compliment him on TV for 3 days. But I can't imagine what Jimmy's been through. Who could endure this suffering? Pray that you do not have to undergo the test as Jimmy Kimmel has. So he came back. Honestly, I didn't watch the monologue. I almost did. I actually went to YouTube to find it because I figured I would talk about it on the show. And so I was looking, and then I stopped myself. And I said, what the hell am I doing? What have I become? What have I become? I'm looking up a Jimmy Kimmel monologue. I'm going to watch the whole thing. I've never watched an entire Jimmy Kimmel monologue in my life. So I almost did. And then I realized that, I actually don't care about this at all. I don't care in the slightest. So I didn't watch the whole thing. I did see only this brief clip of his, I guess this is supposed to pass for his apology. And here's what that sounded like.
I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human. And that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on the other side who I love and remain close to, even though we don't agree on politics at all. I don't think the murderer who shot Charlie Kirk represents anyone. This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution, and it isn't. Ever.
So we're supposed to feel sorry for Jimmy now that he's getting all choked up. And notice, he didn't get choked up after Charlie died. He didn't get emotional about that. That'd be understandable. If he was getting emotional about Charlie's murder, I wouldn't judge him at all for that. In fact, I'd have some level of respect for him. It's like showing real empathy for someone on the other side of the political aisle. But that's not what's happening here. He's crying not for Charlie, but for himself. He's getting emotional out of self-pity. He pities himself because so many people misinterpreted him, he claims. But we didn't misinterpret him. I mean, he absolutely implied that Charlie's killer was a MAGA Republican. And now that theory is totally unsustainable, he's pivoting to saying that, well, the ideology doesn't matter. This is just a sick person. He's a sick person. And, it doesn't matter. He doesn't represent anybody. You ever think you're buying good old American meats at the grocery store? Yeah, so did I, until I learned the labels can say products of the USA for meat that's never even met an American cow. Over 4 billion pounds of the stuff imported last year, all dressed up to look local, even though it isn't. I mean, what else are those labels trying to pull on us? That's what you have to ask. So I started looking for something I could actually trust, especially with kids to feed and a wife who can spot a so-so steak from a mile away. And that's when I found Good Ranchers. These guys only work with local American farms, 100% of it, not a single mystery meat cut in the bunch. Honestly, I joined up for the deals, $25 off every box, free shipping, and a free lifelong gift. We rotate between bacon, Italian sausage, and my personal favorite, those chicken thighs. And if life gets hectic, well, you could pause or skip a box easily, no problem, no guilt trips, no subscription shenanigans. I also love their steaks. They're so unbelievably good and tender that they make pricey steakhouse cuts taste like side dishes at a drive-thru. You just can't beat the quality that Good Ranchers delivers. Best part, my code Walsh gets you $40 off and free meat for life when you subscribe. That's right, $40 off, free meat for life with code Walsh. Just go to goodranchers.com and get fully American meat delivered straight to your door. Goodranchers.com. Welcome to the table. So there's no accountability here. There's no apology. There's no admission of wrongdoing. And again, remember, Kimmel implied that the shooter was a conservative long after it had been irrefutably proven that he's a leftist militant. I mean, it would be one thing if he just assumed it before we had any facts, which also would have been bad and would not have been, unlike my assumption about the ICE shooter, assuming that this was a conservative who shot Charlie Kirk doesn't make it doesn't make any logical sense. But that's not what happened. This was after we knew that this was a leftist. He went out and made this statement, and it was just a flat out lie. And he still refuses to be accountable for it. In fact, he's the opposite of accountable. He has been rewarded. And his show last night, unsurprisingly, was the most widely watched show that he's done in a long time. CNN was very happy about that. Watch.
CNN's Harry Enton is here to run the numbers for us. Like, at this point, I don't think we have the ratings for TV numbers.
No.
But you've been looking online and...
Huge, absolutely huge. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look at YouTube views, Jimmy Kimmel Live video views. The 6-month median, the median video only gets 240,000. Look how many views Tuesday night's monologue already has. 6.7 million. That's over 25 times as large as the median Jimmy Kimmel video normally gets. And I was looking, it is by far the largest video in at least 6 months. But take a look here. Record high Google searches last night for what time is Jimmy Kimmel on? You wouldn't have to check what time Jimmy Kimmel was on if you were a regular viewer. The reason that people were checking what time Jimmy Kimmel was on, because he was potentially pulling in a lot of viewers who normally didn't watch. And get this, it was up over 10,000%. My goodness gracious.
Okay, first of all, again, I must restate, we don't need the guy with the big touchscreen randomly underlining things. Why do we need him to underline and circle the words on the screen? It says 10,000% in huge bold letters. We can see it on the screen. You don't need to underline it. It's the only word on this. That's it. That's all. It's right there. You don't need to stand next to it and underline it. We can read it. CNN's audience for the most part can't read, but even for them, underlining it isn't helpful. So I just don't understand the point of the touch screen. They love using these touch screens now on cable news. They find any excuse they can to use them. And they've all got the touch screen guy that stands by the screen and circles stuff. You see this here? Well, look at it'd be one thing if this was some impressive piece of technology and they were just finding any excuse to use it. It'd be one thing if this was a hologram or something. If this was a Star Wars esque hologram technology and they were just finding any reason to use it, then I would get that. I would accept that. But it's a touch screen. Since I was a kid, we've had touch screens. Every time I see this, it really reminds me of when I was in high school. I had a teacher who there was a dry erase board, a big dry, instead of a chalkboard, a dry erase board, and he liked to use it, but he didn't know how to use it. He's the only teacher I ever saw that had this problem where he didn't know when he was talking about something, he was never sure what to write on the board to help illustrate the point and to give us a visual learning experience. So he would just at random points just write a word or phrase or underline something. And then so by the end of the lesson, if you look at what's on the board, it was just like this schizophrenic looking thing of random where you couldn't draw a connection. And I remember one time he was talking about perspiration, and he started to write perspiration on the board, but then you could tell he realized he didn't know how to spell it. So he just stopped at PERS, P-E-R-S, and then continued talking. At another point, he came back around and he said perspiration again. So he circled it. And so at the end of the lesson, the only thing on the board was PERS circled. That was it. Just not a helpful visual aid is all I'm saying. And I always think of that when I see this CNN's touchscreen guy. More to the point, they're trying to impress us with his big numbers. But all they've proven is that, what we already knew, which is that Kimmel is irrelevant. Like, they tell us that he's averaging 240,000 views per video on YouTube. Now, that's respectable if you're like a podcaster. That's probably about what I'm averaging over the past month. I don't know. I haven't looked, but it's probably something like that over the last month. But I'm just one guy sitting in a room, like talking to the camera. I'm not employed by a major network. I'm not promoted by the mainstream media. I don't have celebrities coming on my show. I don't have an army of writers helping generate content. I don't get paid $15 million a year like Kimmel does. And also, this is not even a primarily video format. I mean, it's an audio podcast with a video element. So most of the audience listens on Apple or Spotify. We also have an audience on the DW platform. So it just goes to show why late night TV is dying. It's not sustainable. Online, you're getting the kind of audience that a political podcast can generate with a tiny fraction of the production budget and none of the marketing, none of the promotion, none of that. And you're getting, the same kind of audience, which is really, and I looked this up. Kimmel has a staff of 200 people working on just his show. I can tell you another thing. I don't have 200 people. I don't have 200 people working. I can't even imagine that. Working with a staff of 200 people that are dedicated just to your show. 200 people. $15 million a year salary. Endless promotion from the mainstream media. You work for ABC. Okay, you're owned by Disney. And like a multi-billion dollar conglomerate. And what's your online audience? 240,000 for all of that. So all that combined effort and all that money, and that's what you get. You get, again, what someone like, a couple of producers sit in front of a camera, talk about the news. It's the same kind of audience. So it's just not, this is why late night is dying. There's just this, and this really shows. And then this was his most, what did they say? It was 7 million. Which, yeah, it's a lot. Like 7 million, that's a lot. But they want us to be impressed by that only a few days after Charlie's memorial. What was the audience for that? It was 100 million. 100 million. Not even counting the hundreds of thousands of people who physically showed up. And then 100 million more watching online on various platforms. And then, they look at 7 million and they want us to be totally blown away by it. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.